that choice is going to be different depending on which comp you're facing. But I'm not talking about that. I am talking about that now. Alright, guys. I am going into the guide. The guide is starting now. So the first thing I'm going to talk about in this guide, well, the first thing I want to say is that, hello, this is live. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's because you missed it on the live stream, and that's completely fine. I understand that. It was kind of short notice. I'm just going to go through a quick guide because a lot of people have been asking me different questions about 5.3, and I would just like to clear some things up. I'm making this guide late because I wanted to at least make it, and this late in the season, I basically figured everything out that I wanted to figure out. I'm confident with all my answers, and I understand what the best priorities are, understand compositions, how to face compositions, things like that. And I'm just gonna dig right into it. I'm gonna just start off with stat priority. So there was like a big controversy in stat priority when it came to PvP power getting nerfed, strength, and haste for rep paladins. So I did narrow it down. I thought that the rotation, or not the rotation, but the global cooldown effect of haste would make haste like on par with strength. So I got a lot of haste in like my yellow socket gems, and I did find out that strength is generally better than just straight haste. So strength is in fact our #1 priority. It is better than PvP power, and the damage increase that strength gives, plus the off healing, obviously, the percentage of off healing, how it translates, but it makes it so it is our priority. It is better than PvP power currently. PvP power is close behind, slightly above haste, just to take into consideration. So like trinkets like this aren't bad at all. Don't get me wrong. Like 15-15 PvP power is still really good. So after strength, there's obviously PvP power, and then after PvP power, there's haste. This is kind of known. So far, we're gemming in our yellow sockets, 80 strength, 160 haste. PvP power and PvP resilience in our green. Resilience is still very good. Please don't take like this whole 65 base resilience thing, thinking that resilience is worthless now. It's not. It absolutely isn't worthless. Like for instance, this gem alone, that meta gem that you can get, reduces like roughly 3% damage alone. That's fucking awesome. Oop, I'm swearing on YouTube. Sorry guys. Other than that, let's see. In red or in free sockets, you really do want to go just pure strength. Strength is our priority. And so after strength, we're talking a little bit about reforging. When you have choices like reforging critical strike or mastery, we want to prioritize mastery over crit. Now beforehand, crit was like our priority because mastery didn't do as much damage as it should have. They fixed it recently, and crit increased our off healing by quite a bit and increased our chance to crit, which increases our damage. And when you off heal crit, you heal for like ridiculous amounts more. So that's why crit was our priority before, but now that they fixed mastery, mastery is definitely our priority over critical strike. So that being said, whenever you have the chance, you want to reforge to mastery. Whenever you have the chance to, or whatever, it's mastery over critical strike and mastery, you want to reforge critical strike to mastery. Or if it's haste and critical strike, mastery, you want to forge critical strike to mastery. Or if it's like haste and mastery, you just leave it alone. Does that make any sense? If it doesn't, feel free to ask. I am checking. Someone does not like agility. That's all. My fucking chat. Anyway, crit for the win. Sanchez and his fucking crit, man. So that being said, with strength being our priority right now, the relic, it's very easily obtainable. You just buy it. It's definitely something to look into. I've tried it myself. It procs so freaking often, and it's awesome. I see the damage increase. You know how like 1 or 2 items you shouldn't really necessarily see a damage increase unless it's like a weapon? With this trinket, I see a dramatic damage increase. Definitely a nice thing to look into. And so that's basically stat priorities, isn't it? Is it not? I mean, when it comes to hit rating, you need to make sure that you are over 3% hit capped. Like if you hover your mouse over it, you can see level 90, and also you need to make sure that you are expertise capped. Like hover over it, you see level 90, 0%. We're good. And also, when you're looking at enchants, even though like strength and stuff is a priority, resilience is still fantastic. It's an amazing stat for PvP. So 200 free resilience instead of getting what's the alternative, like stats, is 200 resilience is just way better. Definitely take the resilience over the stats when it comes to the chest enchant. Other than that, everything's basically straightforward. Get the mastery and the speed increase on your boots. Strength and crit, duh. Belt buckle, duh. Strength on hands, duh. Yeah, you guys get the picture. Alright, so out of this, we're going to go into talents. Talents really hasn't changed since 5.2. Fist of Justice, it's always nice. I mean, Burden of Guilt, when you're running a comp with like 2 melee, it will definitely give you an upper hand on slowing things on your judgment, which is always nice, especially if you're running a double melee comp and Fist of Justice DRs with, like, say, a Shockwave or a Kidney Shot when you're running with a Rogue or a Warrior. So that's something to take into consideration when you're running 3s. Burden of Guilt for BGs also, I suppose. Like, slowing down people on their mounts are always fun. Selfless Healer. Selfless Healer, right now, it's no competition. I skipped right over this top tier. You should know the top tier by now, guys. Come on. But for the level 45 tier, Selfless Healer, no competition. They buffed it to the point where, or they buffed like our off healing to the point where Sacred Shield is no longer a competition. Clemency. Clemency is awesome. It's fantastic. I don't if you haven't realized this already, but Sacrifice dispels your party or your friendly targets, I guess. And that's incredibly useful when you're in arena to get your healer out of CC in particular. The only time that you wouldn't take the double sacrifice or the double bop or the double freedom for Hand of Purity is when you're facing teams like a UA lock. And the reason why is because when you're sacrificing your healer to get them out of a fear and they have UA, you're probably going to kill yourself, or if not, make you fall behind. So at that point, you're just going to want Hand of Purity. You're not going to be sacrificing that much anyway. Take that into consideration when inside the waiting room in arena and you see what you're fighting. As for the level 75 tier, we have Divine Purpose, Sanctified Wrath, Holy Avenger. Same story as the last patch. I mean, Divine Purpose, the overall damage is definitely better. But as for like the burst damage, as for the burst off healing and things like that, Holy Avenger. Holy Avenger is where it's at. Not only that, it's very nice to face mirrors and to use Holy Avenger instead of wings. And while we're CC chaining, mirrors as in Ret, Paladin, Hunter, Disc Priest. That is basically the comp of 5.3 if you're a Ret Paladin. When you're facing a mirror with that comp, with Holy Avenger, you can force a bubble and still have your wings for after the bubble to land the kill. So you can always split up your cooldowns versus just the generic, uncontrollable damage that Divine Purpose will give you. Holy Prism and Execution Sentence. I still get questions about this to this day. Execution Sentence kind of is in the same era as Divine Purpose, as the Execution Sentence may very well do more overall damage over an amount of time. But to be completely honest with you, the shorter cooldown, the ability to get people out of stealth, and the ability to not the ability, but the instant damage, the instant controllable damage is just, I don't know. My recommendation to you, if you're a big Sentence fan, give Prism a shot. See if you like it. Chances are you're probably gonna like it because it's just so much better in so many ways. I was a Sentence fan leveling. I just read it and I'm like, dude, that's obviously the best choice. I was wrong. So just give Prism a shot. As for glyphs, when facing any team with a melee and a caster, you're going to want to go Divine Protection. That splits up your wall into not only magic damage, but also physical damage. You always want to have Glyph of Templar's Verdict. This glyph never really switches out. This glyph is our best glyph right now. Glyph of Flash of Light is generally a good glyph if you're facing a team without a Disc Priest, so you don't need to worry about going and getting Turn Evil. or you're facing a team without a melee, Glyph of Flashlight is definitely a good filler. If you need 2 fillers, like for instance they don't have a Disc Priest and they don't have a melee, you can go ahead and get Word of Glory and Flash of Light. But what that does is it basically increases your overall damage. Now there is an alternative to going Word of Glory. Flash of Light definitely prioritizes over Word of Glory, but a second option for a filler glyph, is what I like to call it, because they're basically fucking useless. What did I say? Is Glyph for Double Jeopardy. If you look at Glyph of Double Jeopardy, when you're planning on making a really hard switch and you think that you're good enough to be able to get ready to judge to another target, which your judgment actually happens very often, so you probably could do it unconsciously, but anyway, if you know that you're going to be making a really hard switch off of a target to another target to land a kill, like that being your strat, as if you're playing anything with like a warrior or a rogue, or even an enhancement shaman, ret enhancement shaman, you could do that with that comp too. You can always get Double Jeopardy. That's always an option. So is that everything to do with glyphs? Did I miss anything, guys? Tell me if I missed anything. Okay, I don't think I missed anything. So that's glyphs. Where am I going from here? So we have talents, glyphs, compositions maybe? Viable compositions. Let's see. So viable compositions would include the main one, which is Ret Paladin, Disc Priest, Hunter. It's just so much control. It's so much damage, and it has more defensive cooldowns than most. I would say a good counter to that team would be Elemental Shaman, Destro Warlock, Healer. That's a very good counter to that team. What I would recommend doing if you're facing that team with Ret Paladin, Hunter, Priest, I would recommend playing very defensively, or play very aggressively, I'm sorry, play extremely aggressive. Try not to let the game last too long, because the more time that team has, the more time they have to get just a random gimp on you. Because as you run out of defensive cooldowns, a Chaos Bolt is just going to tear you apart. Just one Chaos Bolt. And as they continue to get their procs, and as they continue to get their Chaos Bolts off on you and things like that, you will die in a late game. So you need to end that quick. That is my advice to you when facing that composition. Other viable comps would include Ret Paladin, Feral Druid, Healer. Definitely a harder comp than Ret Paladin, Hunter. Ret Paladin, Enhancement Shaman, Healer. Ret Paladin, Elemental Shaman, Healer. Still viable. It's fucking tough. You have to synergize. You Q in 3s? No. You have to synergize your shit with that shaman, because basically there is no healing reduction, there's very little control, but there's a shit ton of burst. So you just have to synergize your burst very well with your shaman and synergize a kill, basically. Be good, YouTube people, don't do drugs. Let's see, what's another comp? I mean, Ret Paladin Fire Mage Healer is a thing. It's really very reliant on your mage to get like his fucking pyroblast going and whatever, and just like one shot. I don't recommend that comp at all. I don't recommend any comps that really require you to just burst and kill something. As anyone who's faced Ret Paladin Hunter, the first thing they probably thought of was, well, this comp's stupid, it's just Mongoloid Fest. It is Mongoloid Fest with a shit dick. Oh, I'm swearing on YouTube again, sorry. A lot of control, like the amount of damage, the amount of offensive purges, the amount of control, the amount of defensive abilities. It's bananas. It's an amazing comp. Tips and tricks. Let's go into that. Say to your mom, love her every day. Alright, bro. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, tell your mom that you love her every day. God damn it. If your mom has passed away or you are not very friendly with your mother, I apologize. I'm sorry that that happened to you. But let's jump into tips and tricks. So first thing I want to talk about in tips and the tricks is the macros. Have a way to target or to use abilities on your teammates without having to target them. Here's an example. I have a modifier macro that will target Snicks with control, Shift, or Mini Oreo with Shift, and Huna with Alt. So if I hold any of those 1-3 buttons down, they'll target 3 different people and then cast Word of Glory when I hit the key binding for that macro. I have that very same macro for all of these, and the reason why that's so good is because you don't have to get off your target that you're killing. You can continue to keep that pressure, you can continue to get that damage in while off healing, helping out your teammates. And not only that, but when you learn something like this, when you understand that you can use utility on your partners, this will increase your reaction time to doing so. For instance, if you think about it, a trap is what, 6 seconds. A freezing trap is 6 seconds. So if you take 2 or 3 seconds to react, which isn't that long at all, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, not that long at all, you basically gave them half of the cooldown that could have not been there. And honestly, I've had to bubble from a scatter shot in my healer that burst is so freaking fast against mirrors as Ret Hunter Disc. It's ridiculous. So take that in consideration. If you can Aura Mastery, oh, that's another tip and trick. If you don't know this already, they changed Aura Mastery. They made it so you can Aura Mastery out of silences. Not only does that mean, so against mirrors, you're basically trying to Aura Mastery instantly the silent shot. A lot of times hunters will silent shot you, the Ret Paladin, and then try to trap so you can't sacrifice your priest out of the trap. In which case, as soon as you see silent shot anywhere, just Aura Mastery. There's nothing else you could use it for, other than letting your priest free cast. But if he's silencing shotting and he's a decent hunter, chances are he's trying to gain control of either you or your priest to control your priest. So yeah, so sacrifice, having that reaction time, being able to keep that pressure, imperative. Another tip and trick is gargoyle, or not gargoyle, but I named it gargoyle, I don't know why, but it's a macro to target a siphon and fear it. I don't love you any more than Hannah Sanchez. Wow, what the fuck is my chat doing? Anyway, well, the reason why I like to target my the siphon to fear it is because most of the time when you're trying to fear the siphon, you don't really fully see it going out, and I'm sure there's plenty of times where you have a macro where it targets it without getting off the target of whatever target you're on, and you're like, oh, I feared the siphon, but he's still sitting there, sure enough, free casting on all your partners. And the reason why is you probably hit that fear in global cooldown, and I know that because I do it all the fucking time. So I have a macro that actually targets the siphon and fears it, so I can see his debuff, it's feared, and then I continue to go back to killing shit. If you're worried about targeting something and then retargeting something, you should have target Arena 1, 2, and 3 bound. Hey, it's Bradford. Oh, hey, cutie. So there's that option. And very similar to my defensive utility, I have my Hammer of Justice, which will modifier for Arena 1 for control, Arena 2 for shift, and Arena 3 for alt. And I can then hodge either any of the arena or any of my arena enemies without even targeting them. Very nice. I have this for kick also, if I'm going to do like a run by kick. You have to have your Swifty one-shot macro. I use a cast sequence where it goes through my wings, my Holy Avenger, and my Tyrannical on-use gloves. Gotta have the Swifty one-shot macro. Another tip and trick that I would recommend to you if you're going against a stealthy, try to run away from your opponents. I don't know, like usually it's probably there's a priest that's gonna fear bomb you. This is just my thinking. And try to use Holy Prism on your teammates. And if a rogue is near one of your teammates, when you use a Holy Prism on a teammate, it will do damage. It will heal your teammate, overheal because the game hasn't started, and then do damage to anything around it, including a stealth rogue. So you can pull a rogue out of stealth doing that. Another tip and trick that I would recommend to you, here let me go to full screen because I'm not doing anything in game. Another tip and trick I would recommend to you is to use, shit, now I have to go back in game, is to use Hammer of Righteous when you feel like a rogue is about to open up on you. Say you're killing, it's an RMP, you're killing the mage, and the rogue vanished, and you're like, this rogue's about to open up on me, that sneaky bastard, I will destroy his face with my sword. Use Hammer of Righteous, because it is an AoE technically, so you could potentially pull that rogue out before he even opens on you. Little tips like that, definitely useful. Make sure to have your buffs keybound. Why the fuck would you have your buffs keybound? They have like a 30-minute blah blah blah, because they can be perched. And honestly, if you go like 15 minutes, 10 minutes of an arena match without buffs, it is considerably a big, or it's definitely a downfall. And not only that, but when you rebuff, it buffs everyone, and it makes it harder for them to clean off something like Fear Ward, or something like even late game. So, things to consider, because like just about everything in the freaking game has an offensive dispel. Don't get me started, fuck's sake. I already talked about glyphs in specific situations. I guess it is time. It is time. Oh, and make sure you have a macro similar to this one. I don't know where we went. Please relax, bro. I'm finding it. I really don't know where I fucking put it. God, I keep swearing and I'm on YouTube right now. I'm famous. Okay, like a macro like this, where it's Seal of Justice and Seal of Truth. There is certain times where you need to have Seal of Justice. Like, if you ever are attacking a Feral Druid, for instance, and he's defensive, he can go to Narnia and back, and you can't do anything about it if you're not slowing him down. Now, usually a Hunter has like a concussive shot, but it's not like you're sacrificing too much damage, especially considering if he's defensive and running away, you're probably going to land a kill on him if he's slowed, in which case, yeah, that 5 stack of truth that probably won't fall off by the time you land a kill. But it's definitely something to take into consideration. Seal of Insight is a last resort, to be honest with you. When you're in shit, you can use Seal of Insight and you could try to heal yourself. Honestly, what I would recommend doing instead of even wasting that global cooldown is Flash of Lighting and faking a kick and getting a Flash of Light off. That'd probably be more beneficial than using that global cooldown. That's my personal preference. I've had other people tell me different. Whatever keeps you alive. That's what I say. What keeps me alive is fake casting, so that's what I do. That's what's up. And not only that, but people will like see me start casting, and I swear to God, they won't even know it. They'll just stop their rotation, their damage rotation, and just like sit there and like, I'm gonna hit this cast bar with my kick. You ready? And then I fake them. So that happens. My last and final trick before talking about 5.4 is this. I'm so professional. If you look at my enchant, I have the disarm reduction. That is priority over Dancing Steel. If you watch people like Vanguards and you look him up, he does have Dancing Steel on his weapon, but he also has another weapon with a disarm chain like this one for when he's disarmed. He literally switches his weapon because it's not on global cooldown, and he's allowed to do that even when he's disarmed, to decrease the disarm rate when he's disarmed. So take that into consideration. This is priority. If you feel like you're not confident enough of a player, well, first of all, I don't care if you're not confident enough at all. Make the macro for the 2 weapons and get 2 tyrannical weapons, or a T2 Malv and a tyrannical, and make the macro and practice it whether or not you're confident enough, so one day you can be. Don't just be like, oh, I can never do that. Vanguards is a god. Don't do that. Make 2 individual, or make a macro for 2 individual weapons, and switch on the disarm if you can. If you feel like it's like a big game and you're riding on it and you know that there's disarms, just stick with the weapon with the disarm already on it. Alright? Alright. Alright. If not, I do have my weapon right here. I don't have enough conquest to buy my second weapon yet, so I'm still waiting on that. But as soon as I will, I have my Dancing Steel, I have my macro ready to go. I'm ready to do stuff. I'm ready to disco. So there's that. 5.4 changes. Draft Arb is adorable. Tropical Juice wins. Like, what the fuck is my chat doing? Anyway, 5.4 changes. So 5.4 is generally changing our talent tree. Well, not only that, they're giving us a duration buff on Inquisition, which is fucking sweet. I'm just gonna swear forever because this is YouTube. Where Fist of Justice and Turn Evil, or Fist of Justice will not necessarily be priority against every comp. Now, the new Turn Evil that's going, I forgot what it is. It was a very clever name. I'm sure my chat will list it for you very soon here. Rune in particular, because he's a cutie. It's a fear for humanoids, is basically what it is. That's fantastic, and not only that, but you don't actually lose your Hammer of Justice, you just lose the range in the short cooldown. Turn Evil, we're not really too sure yet what the cooldown's gonna be, but against teams like, for instance, like with a Shaman that can just tremor the fear, it's still relatively good considering you're gonna have like a Disc Priest on your team or something else generally that can fear. This season, next season you're probably gonna have a similar comp with a Disc Priest. So if you have something with 2 fears and you can just fear a fear ward off instead of trying to purge it, that's fine. That's absolutely awesome considering we didn't have that ability before. But against something with Tremor Totems, it's not going to be as big of a deal. We don't necessarily know what compositions are going to be popular in 5.4 yet, so it's kind of hard to know which compositions to use it and which compositions not to use it. But that's the first thing that came to my head is a Tremor Totem, so I'll just stick with Fist of Justice, or I'll go Fear when I'm running with a Warrior, so I don't have to worry about DRing my crap. And then Hand of Purity is getting buffed. Unbreakable Spirit's also getting buffed. So Hand of Purity is still going to be priority. Actually, that's a tough one now. So Hand of Purity is getting buffed, so it's going to be good against UA locks, right? But at the same time, Unbreakable Spirit's getting buffed to the point where our bubble is going to be 2.5 minutes instead of 5 minutes, which is kind of huge. Having your reset button be cut in half is kind of a big deal. Though there is going to be comps where having the 2 sacrifices to get your healer out of CC is going to be more important than having a longer bubble. We don't know the comps yet. We don't know which comps are going to be the best at, but the first thing I could think of would be like a comp with like a Shadow Priest or a comp with like a Warrior that can just take your bubble off anyway. At that point, I'm going to want specifically Priest, because they have that massive spell glyph where it's just really quick. I'm going to want Clemency over that to be able to sack my healer out of a lot of shit. Yeah. And then there's the Hand of Purity buff, which is going to be great against UA locks. Don't know exactly which compositions they're going to be great against, but things to keep in mind when queuing up in 5.4. If you're watching this in 5.4, like, why haven't I made a new guide yet for you? Because I'm an asshole. Other than that, everything else is the same. So that's me talking about 5.4. Oh, and I wanted to say one more thing about the Inquisition, not the Inquisition, the Guardian stuff. So people think that the Guardian thing isn't necessarily that big of a deal. The Guardian thing actually, to me, is a pretty big deal. I'm really good at synergizing my stacks with my burst, so I fucking rape shit, to be honest with you. Like, when I get like 18 stacks, I've hit like 140k in a fully geared player. It's freaking awesome. So I'm gonna miss my nuke, my synergized nuke that I did feel like it had like some sort of skill to get that off in that time window, and that's gone, which kind of sucks. But at the same time, our sustained damage is going to be buffed, which is always good because it's really good right now. And I think that all these 5.4 changes are definitely beneficial. Don't get me wrong, not as beneficial as some people are making them out to be, considering you are giving up something for something else. But the options that they're giving us pre-game, that's increasing the skill cap of Rep Paladins in general, which basically is a win for me, because I feel like I'm not a casual. I understand the game, I understand my class, so whatever makes my class harder, I'll keep up with, but maybe other people won't, so it makes me look better. I'm totally for that. So guys, that was my 5.3 guide. I am Dmachine, fucking blast off and shit, and I will see you another time. Dmachine out, blast off, rune's pretty.